Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, depending of where you are. I will be presenting the session, the information session about the online course, which is selecting and implementing electronic data capture. This course is a 4 weeks course that will be running from January 11 to February 6. And now we will be going into the more information and more details about this, the contents of this course. But before that, I will introduce myself. So my name is Farida Dabouz, and I have more than 20 years in the clinical research with the pharmaceutical companies, biotech, and mainly the academic. I am a statistician, and as you know, I'm a statistician and data manager. They work together for the quality and the integrity of the data. However, we need also to understand from where the data is coming, and for that I did the certification from SOCRA to be able to work with the site that generate the data. Of course, as a statistician, we do have to have some standardization, and that's why I did this certification in SCDM and ADAM. So my main activities were training the investigators and the site personnel, data manager, project manager, to understand also the importance of the data, but not only the importance of the data, but the importance of the processes, as well as what kind of tools that we are going to use in order to ensure the quality and the integrity. And as a statistician, I wanted to demystify the statistics to people working in clinical trials. So I did consulting in different areas for clinical trials, and I am currently responsible for clinical operation in the oncology academic group based in the MENA region, which is Middle East and North Africa region. So now we will be going and we will be doing the information session regarding the EDC1. So as what we know, the EDC1 is, as I said, it's a 4 weeks module. Each week has for those that took already some other online course, we have each week with the collaborative work between the participants, that is based on discussion, activities, and assignment. And each of this section, discussion, activity, and assignment is very well detailed in the online course. This information session provide also some data or some, I will say, supportive document and the source that will help each participant to work on each module. Also, one of the key that we find out that communication, as we know, even in our day-to-day working area, we have to have this communication in order to success. But specifically for the online course, because this course is taken by different participants worldwide, it's very important to communicate and to see how we can share the experience from each other in order to succeed the course. Now we will be going into details, okay? So the first week, what is the objective of the first week? As what we said, this course is regarding the implementation of the EDC. And as a DM, and not only as a DM, the data manager can be leading this process. However, the selecting an EDC, it's a teamwork. It's a decision from your business process and procedures. So you have, if as a leader, you have to list what are your business requirements that it's necessary to identify an EDC vendor, because there is so many platforms available now in the market that you need to look at what are these vendors, what are their processes, what are their processes of validation also of the platform, and also what is the life cycle of this platform, how is it developed, how it was developed, validated, and what is the processes of improvement and changes. Also, you need to know your business. Is it a small CRO? Is it an academic group? Is it a pharmaceutical company? Is it a big CRO? So you have to do first your needs. What are your needs and what are your requirements in order to select the appropriate EDC for you that can fit your organization. And yes, you have to explore what is in the market. And in the marketplace, you can find so many EDC, but you need to know what do you need as a business, and what is how this EDC can fit in your organization, but also in your environment. And what is not to think just to implement it, but just think for the future how it can be used for the different type of study that you will be running. Also, you need to look at what kind of interaction this product will be having if you have other products that are already installed. Let's say you have a tool for the randomization and you want to implement an EDC. How these two will be interacting, and if there is any issue or something like that, you have to look at these processes before. Of course, in any process of selecting an EDC or selecting any tools, you have to do what we call a request for information, and also to prepare, in order to prepare the request for proposal to choose an EDC vendor. So this step is important. So during the week one, you will have some tools and some document to work on it, and also as what we said, each module is based with the discussion and exchange between the participant. Now, for the week two, let's say that you have selected some few EDC vendors, and you requested a proposal to see what is the best one, and in terms of budget, of course, but also in terms of implementation, in terms of their documentation of the cycle of the development of the platform, in terms of documentation, validation of documentation related to the validation, and how these vendors can fit into my business requirement. That is very important steps. And it's not only for data manager. We have to say here that you need to have all the stakeholders, I mean, working as a group, as a team for this big project, because of course the data manager can look at what is the study requirement, but the upper management has to look also what are the business requirements for not only for the short term, but also for the long term. So this kind of project is a teamwork. I mean, statistician also has to be involved, project management has to be involved, and upper management has to be involved also. And if it's in the big organization, I will say IT, people from IT needs also to be involved on that. And also it depends on what type of EDC you are looking for, because some EDC are implemented. I mean, most of the EDC now are hosted by the vendor, and there is only just access to the platform where you can define your protocol and your CRF. So you have to also, as what I say, it's important to define the scope of work. Who is doing what in this process? Not here it's a scope of work for a particular study, but I will say there is first step is a scope of work when we decide to decide what kind of EDC are we going to use. Then after that you have to define it, to define the scope of work for a particular study, but always to keep in mind that it's not only for one study. You need to think for the future, what the different type of studies that you may have. Is it something that can be easily implemented in the selected EDC? So understanding the scope of work, it's also something that is important. Why? Because if everyone will know exactly what it has to be done and by whom it will be done, and when it has to be done. because if the scope of work is not very clear, you know, you might have some delay, you might have some kind of miscommunication, and which can delay the implementation of the project. So, and if there is any changes in terms of because a platform is involving, a platform can be updated or a new version or something like that. How are we going to implement these changes for us for an ongoing project? Now, when we come to the week 3, we are moving. So we have selected an EDC, or at least we know which one we are going to take for our business. We need to understand how this technology is working, how this technology will impact the data entry, not only from the data management point of view, but you have to think it also from the site, with the site that you are using, you used to work with them, how this will impact their processes of data entry. So that is a point that sometimes we forget. We look at the technology from a data management point of view, from a business point of view, but we are forgetting the end users. I will say that it's most of the time used by the site to do the data entry. So understanding the technology, that is also, it's an important item. After that, I mean, to look also how we can design our electronic CRF to minimize the data entry, but not only to minimize the data entry, but to make it user-friendly for the site. To make it user-friendly for the site in order for them to not to have a problem and to have data entry errors, but to be able to enter the appropriate data that is requested by the protocol. So, I mean, when we look at the different type of EDC, we can see that they are, I will say, most of them, they have the functionality that we do need for clinical trials. But some of them, they may have something as an extra. How we can link, for example, if you are using a randomization process, how the EDC that I selected, how that they can manage a randomization. If we are using, for example, material or drug supplies, how we can implement, do they have this functionality in order to make sure that the drugs are can be managed within the platform. And like that, we can link it after that with the case report form. Another things also that is very important is to see, you know, we have a clinical trials, we collect the adverse event and the concomitant medication. So if we are using a standard dictionary as a MEDRA or a WHO drug, we need to assess if this technology will be able or has a link, or how we can work in order to do the coding of the adverse event and the concomitant medication. All this kind of question is something that you need to ask and to investigate when you are doing your market research about the EDC, and when you design your eCRF. Also, the EDC or eCRF is very important in terms of when it comes to the design, but also not only to the design, but also to monitor the workflow process that we can have with the CRF. Okay, we do the design, we validate the eCRF, but also we test the CRF, and we have what we call the user acceptance of the CRF. But it's not only that, it's also when it comes to validation, data validation and data review, is it something that can be done easily? Do we have enough functionalities or reporting within the EDC that will help the data manager, or will have also the CRA to do the data review? So this kind of point that needs also to be checked when you do your EDC selection. EDC, I mean, when we switched from the paper CRF to the electronic CRF, it was very helpful for the clinical trials because we have the data live and we can review them. But we need also for an organization to have processes that are very well defined. And you know, when selecting an EDC, you have to be prepared to have SOPs clear, SOPs that define your workflow and that define also who is responsible to do what. So that is data management. However, as I said a long time ago, data managers were working in their silo and a statistician apart, and then the PM. And now with this, with the EDC, we have a cross-functional working processes that within an EDC, for example, we can have a project manager connected as a read-only to review the data or to look at where we are in terms of recruitment, in terms of enrollment, in terms of eligibility, and that is very important. So like that, as a team, as a study team, which is a statistician, data manager, project manager, CRA, will have access to this EDC in order to make the best practice for the management of the data that is not only under the data management. So, of course, I mean, when you define, before you define an electronic CRF, you have to make sure that when you do your CRF design, to define your requirement and to define your specification, a specification in terms of what are the modules that you need to define, the forms or the items or the code list or all that. But also to discuss with the SAS, with the statistician, to define also the SAS name for each variable. So like that, it will make it easy for a statistician when he does the data analysis and the data review. Now we did a selection of an EDC, we implemented and we validated this implementation within our organization. Documentation is very, very important. Then what we did, we had a study and we designed the EDC, so the eCRF for this specific study. During the design of the EDC, we should have also defined what we call the ED checks. What are the kind of checks that we are going to do within the eCRF? We can have some messages to the site saying, okay, in order to pop up during the data entry, so it will help them when they enter a wrong date, for example, or wrong data. The CRF has to be designed in a way that is easy for the data entry, user-friendly for the data entry, and also covering what is requested by the protocol. And also in order to ensure the quality and the integrity of the data, we have to define some kind of AD checks or actions that, depending of the platform that you choose, can be developed within the eCRF. So after that, the data manager will execute the validation and doing testing the eCRF until we have a clean eCRF and without any errors, and covering what we want to define on it, and that is what we call user acceptance testing. What some of the organization, what they can do, you can involve also the CRA. And for example, if you have a preferred site, they can be involved in the user acceptance. They can do the testing, and like that you can see also how this validation is done by a user. And we have a different user for the EDC. We have the site, we have the CRA, we have the data manager, we have project manager. So we have if there is anyone who will be doing the coding, we might have someone who will be doing the coding. So it's better to do the testing by this different profile of users. So like that, you know that there is no issue, and you can set up at the end a user acceptance from the different profile. Of course, any CRF should have completion guidelines. Completion guidelines, sometimes it's a long time ago we used to develop something very heavy and the site is not using that. So I will say the completion guidelines, it's a mix of two things. Completion guideline can be done as a different kind of messages that pop up during the data entry, so that it will help the site to enter the data without stopping them, but just to guide them. And also it can be developed as a document, not heavy document, not very, 30 pages or something like that. I mean, depending on the complexity of your eCRF, but something very straightforward to explain to the site what are we expecting in terms of data entry. One of the things also, it's the training the site on or training any user of the eCRF will help them also to understand how this eCRF was developed and was designed. Because we need to keep in mind that eCRF is developed by a data manager who is more technical, and some people, they don't understand the technicality, or maybe they don't see the technicality behind the eCRF platform. So data entry guidelines, instruction, and as I said, e-help for the EDC platform will be very useful for any users of the EDC. Now, if we do a test transfer to validate and to verify the electronic data, that also, if we have to do some transfer of data, for example, we are receiving lab data that has to be implemented within the eCRF, this also has to be tested. If we are working with as I said here, we are working with external parties, we need to agree on when the transfer is done, what is the contents, what is the format, and what is the schedule, to make sure that this external data can be loaded within an eCRF without any problem. That it has to be tested also. And now regarding, I mean, using in the best way the EDC platform or the EDC eCRF, everything has to be defined with the processes and the clear SOP. Because we need to be compliant of what we are doing, not compliant with our processes, but compliant with the GCP, compliant with the CFR Part 11, and compliant also with some other local regulation in terms of data processing. So that is the EDC1 course that you hopefully you will be registering for that, because it's a very important course for our day-to-day work. Even if we are not involved in the data management as per se, and if we are involved in the protocol, in the study, we need to understand what is behind the EDC process, from the time of selecting an EDC platform to the time that you have your study running on the electronic data capture. So the online course, I will leave that to Alessandra to explain to you about the online learning course. Alexandra?
Yes, thank you, Farida. So just as a reminder of what is an online learning course. So one of the many aspects of an online learning is that the course will be asynchronous. So you're doing it at your own pace. Of course, it is deadline driven, but you can do it. It's open 24/7, and you can do it anytime in any place. It is collaborative and instructor facilitated. And most importantly is a Moodle platform. So it's a modular object-oriented dynamic learning environment. So you're going to be in a platform where you can also exchange ideas with your peers and exchange ideas on the different assignments and different case studies that you will have to submit. And there will be always a discussion forum where you can get to know your peers, but also exchange ideas with your instructor, but also with the rest of the participants. So we really would like you to invite you to register for the course, and you can find the course into the scdm.org under education. So in our education platform, you will find you can look for the course and register for it. If you have any questions, let us know. You can contact us at learning@scdm.org, and we're really looking forward for your participation. So thank you so much. Thank you, Farida, for the great content overview for this online course, and we hope to see you there. Bye.